Welcome back to more lore of Nikke Goddess of Victory. This is a series designed for veterans and newcomers, where I blaze through the main story, and Dai-chan analyzes what I cover without fear of spoilers. Today, we'll be looking at Rapi's backstory in the Footstep walk-run event, as well as their glow-up in the Absolute event. It's been a long time coming, and I'm excited to share it with you. Last we left off, the heretic Leviathan tried to invade Rapi's mind to break her spirit. Instead, Rapi held true to her resolve, finally realizing she can honor Red Hood's legacy in her own way. Her epiphany came with a bodily transformation, permanently upgrading her form to reflect her new state of mind. This also unlocked the full potential of 7 Dwarves Zero, a weapon Snow White originally made for Red Hood. With its kick-ass drill attachment, Rapi stood up against 2 of these 4 beasts, and even killed Behemoth. The commander encounters return to the Ark so that Rapi can discuss things with Ingrid. Anise and Neon have their own business in the Ark, but while we're still together, Rapi finally thinks it's time to tell us about her past. Anise and Neon are excited, treating this like a party, having no idea just how heavy things get. Back when she was human, Rapi was sickly and hospital-bound. She barely clung to life in the Ark, while the first surface reclamation war was being advertised on TV. A naive child at the time, she instead wanted to watch cartoons. The importance of taking back the surface was lost on her. Rapi didn't care, because she herself had no hope for the future. Even if humanity were to succeed, she'd still remain bedridden. Rapi hated getting shots, mainly because they hurt and didn't seem to help. Her treatment was experimental, with no guarantee she'd be cured. It reached a point where Rapi wondered if dying would be preferable to her current suffering. Eventually, news on the surface reclamation war dried up because the effort was a complete failure. The Ark had invested significant capital into their campaign, tanking the economy in the process. By extension, Rapi's hospital was in a financial crisis, on the chopping block for cutbacks. Regardless, her nurse always tried to cheer her up, insisting she would be cured. As we know from the Pretty Star story, losing the war caused a wave of Nikke phobia, with humans blaming Nikkes for their loss. Rapi's nurse attended protests to defend Nikkes, but wound up killed when violence broke out. This, sadly, was a common occurrence. Sure enough, the recession eventually led to the closure of Rapi's hospital. This was essentially her home, as she had no living family to take her in. Rather than be tossed out on the streets, Rapi's doctor suggested she participate in a clinical trial for a new drug. Doing so would land them a grant large enough to stay afloat. There wasn't much to lose, so she complied, becoming the drug's first success. Rapi's condition was stabilizing, though it would take time. Another news broadcast was discussing a prior incident called the Goddess Fall, in which a bunch of mass-produced Nikkes tried to desert the Ark and pioneer their own home on the surface. The central government tried to stop them, unintentionally causing one of the elevators to plummet at a rapid pace. To save everyone from the elevator crashing down, those brave Nikkes chose to self-destruct. While tragic, this became a turning point in Nikke civil rights. It's not to be confused with the Goddess Fall event, which occurs much later and has nothing to do with this incident. I still think it's weird why these 2 things share the same name. Anyway, Rapi's new treatment was working, but it also caused her a lot of agony. Unfortunately, her doctor dismissed her concerns in anticipation of more funding. After years of this, Rapi grew up and her condition was cured. For the very first time, she could go outside, but had no clue how to live a normal life. Her case single-handedly saved the hospital, so her doctor arranged a residence and budget for her to live on. Despite standing in a crowded city, Rapi felt lonely, as everyone was occupied with their own business. Wandering aimlessly, she came upon a protest, where a mass-produced model was advocating for Nikke rights. Poor Rapi only wanted to find someone willing to speak with her, but was interrupted by explosions trying to cancel the event. The mass-produced Nikke saw Rapi and tried to bring her somewhere safe, only to be killed in another explosion. This was supposed to be a peaceful gathering, but it was still happening during a time when the government found Nikke phobia a convenient scapegoat for their failure. They would dismiss, and sometimes even support, violent suppression. Mistaken for one of the protesters, Rapi was gunned down not long after finally leaving the hospital. She later woke up in the body of a mass-produced Nikke designated as RR-15436. The nymph in her brain provided her the necessary military knowledge to fight, and she was immediately assigned both a squad and a mission. In a way, Rapi found this relieving, as she wouldn't have to think for herself. All she had to do was follow orders. One of her squad mates, Sarah, tried talking to her with a bright and friendly demeanor. Despite Rapi's reluctance, Sarah convinced her and their squad leader to go out drinking after the mission. As a human, Sarah was allergic to alcohol and found being a Nikke expanded her horizons. Nikkes don't always remember their past lives, but Rapi could still recall being shot at the protest. Even though her attitude was morose, Sarah tried to socialize her. However, Rapi wasn't just unsociable, she had no hobbies, interests, or ambitions to speak of. She was empty. Sarah would simply compensate for this by talking more about herself. Sadly, she wouldn't live long enough for Rapi to open up to her. On their next mission, Rapi destroyed some raptures, only to turn around and find her team completely mangled. Only then did she realize just how much she appreciated Sarah for showing her what life could be. Rapi made a habit of reclaiming whatever Nikke heads she could find on the battlefield. This earned her praise from her superiors, but criticism from her peers. Rumors spread that Rapi was intentionally decapitating Nikkes to earn commendation. Some Nikkes just couldn't believe she would actually put herself in danger to save anyone else. When confronted by two other mass-produced models and accused of butchering her own teammates, Rapi had no response recommended by her nymph. Instead, she instinctively slapped the shit out of them, knocking out one of their teeth. It became her first act of legitimate free will, and as you'd expect, it landed her in the rehabilitation center. Being locked up didn't make her regret what she did. On the contrary, she was eager to explore her will further. One of Rapi's cellmates, Rio, was obsessed with Pretty, taking every opportunity to watch her 20-second ad slots on TV. Rapi couldn't understand the concept, unintentionally provoking the hot-headed Rio to attack her. With an uppercut to the chin, Rio fell to the floor unconscious. Another cellmate, Wendy, was quite impressed by the display. This awkward encounter broke the ice, with Rio and Wendy vowing to coach Rapi into proper behavior. Though frustrated, Rapi began to inquire more about others' emotions. Rio, for instance, envied Pretty's beautiful face, voice, and dancing, feeling she could never obtain those things herself. Rapi didn't have anyone she admired like that, but Rio insisted she would one day find someone she'd want to emulate. After their sentence was up, Rio and Wendy recruited Rapi into their squad, Skullhead. Fundamentally, mass-production Nikkes perform one of three tasks: acquiring resources, defending the Ark like police officers, and fighting raptures on the surface. Skullhead sought fame through performing the third option, which was the most dangerous, but also most in line with a Nikke's original purpose. Rapi didn't care for glory, but thought working with them would allow her to find a goal in life. On one of these missions, Rapi protected Rio after one of her legs was blown off. Their rookie commander threw a fit about Rio slowing them down. They used to be able to act on their own, but now human commanders were assigned to every squad. Much of this stemmed from distrusting Nikkes, and was highly inefficient. New commanders usually had a 70% chance of dying on their first mission, and Skullhead had already gone through 3 of them prior. Despite this statistic, commanders tend to act like hotshots, aspiring to be like Andersen, the legendary commander of the Goddess Squad. This is, in part, due to the tremendous potential shown by one commander titled New Hope. We already know that to be Johan back in his heyday. Even before the Second Surface Reclamation War, Johan was an outstanding example, giving the central government the confidence needed to attempt a second war. Before that came to pass, however, Rio was psyched to attend one of Pretty's live concerts. Unfortunately, that just so happened to be the same night Pretty was killed. Seeing this totally destroyed Rio's confidence, relaying to Rapi that there's no point in trying if someone as amazing as Pretty could die so easily. The timing couldn't have been worse. Rio dreamed of being an idol, so Rapi and Wendy pulled favors to procure an audition ticket for Tetraline. Having an actual shot at her dream changed Rio's tune, and she excitedly began training for a bright future. Of course, this is Nikke, and the writers are evil. That very night, Rio was corrupted and began attacking her own squad. Wendy had to kill her best friend and, unable to bear that weight, took her own life. To pour salt on the wound, that audition ticket was counterfeit anyway. This all left Rapi feeling as empty as ever. Time and again, she would fight on the surface with new allies, hearing about dreams they'd never attain. Raptures, corruption, mind switches, they all claimed the lives of her squad mates, yet she survived, not even having a dream. Eventually, the Ark began preparing for the Second Surface Reclamation War, an effort 100 times larger than the first. 2 years into that war, Rapi herself was deployed, surviving when most of her squad was eliminated the moment the elevator door opened. Shit's like Normandy. Regardless, Rapi and the remnants of her squad went on to join the main force. Since humanity still hadn't reclaimed a single sector for very long, it was basically a suicide mission. Despite this, Rapi came back alive from every operation, ominously earning the nickname Grim Reaper for cheating an 8% survival rate. It was as though Rapi were cursed to keep living and repeatedly watch others perish. Alone, she fought until an abnormal Nikke discovered her. It was Red Hood, inquiring what year it was. Rapi helped confirm that it had been 30 years since Red was last conscious. This whole time, Rapi had only gone by her code name, but Red Hood insisted they talk like real people. The last time Red was active, humanity had just started fleeing to the Ark. Better late than never, I suppose. Red Hood agreed to help Rapi join the army's main force. She revealed she was part of the goddess squad, but Rapi didn't really believe it. It had been a while since anyone did this, but Red Hood wanted to bury the fallen Nikkes they came across. The dead may not be able to hear her prayers, but she found solace in the tradition. Along the way, Red Hood used her cassette player to grace Rapi with her favorite tunes. Her whole life, Rapi had never actually listened to music before. The two of them spoke of their dreams and how Rapi lacked one. What's the point of having a dream if it's over the moment you die? Hearing this, Red Hood offered to grant a single wish for Rapi. She wanted to achieve something before the strain of corruption finally ended her. Normally, Rapi was a by-the-book soldier, and protocol stated that corruption couldn't be cured. Red, however, was able to function even as the corruption eroded her vitality. Still, she estimated she'd only live for another week at best. Rapi didn't have a dream, nor did she ever have expectations of others. In a joking manner, trying to shut down the conversation, Rapi asked to be taken to the lift. Ha! Joke's on you, Red Hood actually accepts this request, even though the lift is basically ground zero for the whole Rapture invasion. In the meantime, Red did everything she could to ascertain Rapi's preferences for things like music and food. This meant exposing her to new things. Different weapons, different outfits, different sleeping habits. Sure, these weren't necessary, but they made life worthwhile. True to her word, Red Hood delivered Rapi to the lift, knowing full well it was a fake wish. From afar, they could see swarms of raptures that eventually noticed their presence. As they fled, they fell through a crack in the ground. The landing broke Rapi's legs, preventing her from moving on. Unable to escape, she crawled her way to a corner and sat in darkness, resigning herself to death. Red Hood, however, fended off their pursuers in a display of badassery. She was an inspiration, and not even corruption could tarnish her spirit. At that moment, Rapi realized her wish was to become just like this sexy goddess. They were stuck underground, so Red Hood ventured deeper into a corridor in search of something to repair Rapi's legs, or perhaps a path to the surface. Instead, she encountered a 10-meter-tall metal door. She was gonna smash her way in, but the door opened on its own. Further in, Red met a woman who referred to herself in plural as Deep, the Guardians of the Ark. She clarified that she was a separate entity from the central government. This facility was actually the lift's basement, where its power source resided. This power source was a gigantic rapture core, the ultra-massive core as they called it. It's a lot freakier than the name lets on. Naturally, Red Hood wanted to destroy this core, taking the entire lift down with it. However, Deep urged her to reconsider, as this core was paired with another just like it. Should one core fall, the other will also deactivate. They must continually resonate with one another. The big reveal is that the corresponding core was being kept inside the Ark. That's right, a rapture core is the source of energy the Ark has been relying on. Without it, humanity would lose their ability to make food, operate the elevators, or use any of their technology. They'd be cooked, basically. This has an even crazier implication, an ironic twist to the entire narrative. In order to defeat the raptures, mankind would have to abandon the only place currently protecting them. For as much as they fight the raptures, they might as well be living inside one. Since Red Hood was able to find this place so easily, Deep vowed to better fortify it going forward. In fact, the only reason Rapi hadn't been silenced already was because of her reputation as a goddess, and the fact that she was going to die soon anyway. Fortunately then, Rapi had fallen asleep at the other end of the corridor. Deep offered to repair Rapi so they could get the hell out. During this process, Deep knocked Red Hood unconscious with a golden light, taking the chance to examine her. Sure enough, she was still corrupted, but her nymph kept resisting. Both Rapi and Red awakened on the surface, further out from the lift. While we sure won't be forgetting anytime soon, Red can't seem to remember her conversation with Deep. Anyway, in an effort to grant Rapi's true wish, Red offered all manner of training and advice. Even so, Red Hood stressed that the two of them would always be different people. Still, ever since she was made into a Nikke, Rapi's vision of a goddess of victory had crumbled away. She learned Nikkes were destined to suffer, unable to achieve their only purpose. Red Hood, however, demonstrated how enduring their convictions could be. Strangely, Red could have used this week looking for her fellow squad mates. While she was certain they were alive, she'd already parted ways with them on a high note. She'd rather spend her second wind helping someone else, even if that person lacked their own will to live. In time, Red hoped Rapi would find a purpose in life, one separate from just following in her footsteps. That said, Red Hood admitted to one of her only regrets. Part of her still wanted to go see her hometown before dying, even though she had no clue where to look at this point. The only thing she could do was reminisce about it. Resuming their training, Red Hood passed along her reckless yet effective fighting style to her protege. Rapi used to fight the way her nymph dictated, so none of these new techniques came as second nature. However, she recalled the few times she relied on her own will, slapping that rude Nikke and procuring a ticket for Rio. These moments made her feel proud, and channeling that pride may help her move forward. Rapi never had a choice when it came to being a Nikke. Red Hood, on the other hand, used to be a total delinquent. Instead of working, she always goofed around with her friends until dying in an accident of some sort. Becoming a Nikke was her second chance at life, and she wound up being really talented. She was lucky to have the strongest allies available. Eventually, Rapi learned everything Red Hood could teach her. They made their way back to the Ark, and as things came down to the wire, Rapi pleaded for them to turn around and look for Red's hometown. She felt guilty for hogging Red Hood's last precious moments. Red, however, was content with her choices and reached a point where she could go no further. Her eyes redder than ever, she asked Rapi to go on ahead, not wanting to attack her own friend in some berserk rage. After all, she knew Rapi wouldn't be able to kill her if it came to that. Thus, after a fist bump, Rapi switched on the cassette player and let Red Hood pass away to her favorite country song. Rapi never did leave Red Hood behind. Instead, she wept and clung to her mentor's body for months, seasons even. She was in a trance-like state of mourning, and by the time she came to, Red Hood was no more. Somehow, Rapi knew Red Hood was still with her, deep in her heart. Turns out, 4 years had passed since mankind gave up the Second Surface Reclamation War. Rapi had spent most of that time clutched to Red's corpse before choosing to wander the surface. The government's strategy moving forward was to employ guerrilla warfare, sending smaller squads out on more focused missions. Rapi's return to the Ark was met with amazement. Ingrid, the current CEO of Elysian, insisted on meeting the mass-produced Nikke, who survived over 300 battles. An examination showed that Rapi weighed twice the average Nikke and possessed 2 cores. Her ego, which was barren before, had since grown considerably. Recall that humans with a strong sense of self were more likely to be made into named Nikkes, as opposed to mass production models. Rapi's new development meant that her brain was compatible with a much stronger body now. Thus, Ingrid gave Rapi a considerable upgrade, officially signing her on as an Elysian Nikke. Now, considering a Nikke's core was tied to their body, it was mysterious, miraculous even, that this new body also possessed 2 cores. Dai-chan talked about this a while back, but it's almost like this second core of Red Hoods is soul-bound to Rapi, and Ingrid has no explanation for it. Still, Elysian would research ways to make the best use of her 2 cores. Additionally, Rapi requested to be put in the strongest squad possible. This was, of course, Absolute. Even as Absolute rose as the Ark's top squad, Rapi still sought further strength. During a test to harness her core, Rapi's body transformed into Red Hood. That second core contained Red's ego and body mapping. Ingrid barely managed to return Rapi to her original form. Since then, she's considered this phenomena too dangerous to make public. If expanded upon, this technology could be used to turn Nikkes into completely different people. By injecting someone's ego into a different brain via the nymph, said Nikke could literally become that person, or a copy of them anyway. Ingrid ensured that nobody, not even her own mechanics, would remember this discovery. Nonetheless, Rapi retained an ability to enter overdrive, tapping into Red Hood's strength at the risk of her own ego being overtaken. The rest is history. Rapi went on to do amazing things for Absolute, but got so fixated on becoming stronger that she failed to care about a human she accidentally killed. Facing a crisis of identity, Rapi chose to leave her squad and work with other units. Finding a place for Rapi proved troublesome, as she began drifting from one squad to the next. Eventually, Elysian stuck her with another troublemaker. Anise was known for being irreverent and insubordinate. She didn't really care much for humanity, not after her experience as an idol. She couldn't stand incompetent commanders preaching to her about a Nikke's sworn duty. Rapi could tell this was Anise exercising her indomitable will. The two of them were very different, but that wound up working out nicely. Back in the present, Rapi finishes her story, and the commander ends things by playing Red Hood's cassette tape. Despite its sentimental value, none of them actually liked the genre. Knowing all this, we can now say why Red was subconsciously asking Rapi to destroy the Ark. Her memories of Deep still seemed dormant in her mind, but she couldn't recall them without significant pain. Now that Rapi's body has become something completely new, there doesn't seem to be any risk of Red Hood taking over. In the wake of these developments, Absolute got their very own event, which I'd like to discuss here while it's most relevant. We learn that the members of Absolute were recruited by Ingrid under the hopeless dream of reclaiming the surface. They acknowledged how difficult and futile that would be, yet still took up arms, seriously aiming for that goal by tossing away their fear of dying. The event recaps the battle between Absolute, Matisse, and the heretic Indivilia. During a dream, Eunhwa remembers it being a close call, where they were nearly wiped out. This same frustration, fear, and desperation reawakened during her fight with Behemoth. Even though that's all in the past, and she can wake up from the dream to see her squad mates alive and well, those battles continue to haunt her. Now that they've received their tactical upgrades, Absolute has been assigned a new mission. In the frigid north, we meet a squad of mass-produced Nikkes named Falcon, Owl, and Eagle. They struggle against ordinary raptures and a blacksmith before Absolute jumps in to save them and their bratty, incompetent commander. Absolute is stronger than ever, but that doesn't stop Ingrid from noticing Eunhwa's strange behavior. According to the combat data, Eunhwa has been putting herself at risk, despite being the team's sniper. I guess after seeing Vesti get sliced in two, it seems she's desperate to take on more of the aggro. With some well-earned R&R on the table, Vesti tries to arrange a fun outing for the three of them, but eunhwa declines. This leads to an altercation, where Vesti calls eunhwa out for trying to coddle her as a weakling, even after the upgrade. Accurately, she points out that eunhwa is still fixated on Rapi, and not on growing stronger as a team. Emma is left alone as her partners storm out in frustration. Hoping to reflect on things, eunhwa sits in the swing set of a playground next to the military academy. Joining Absolute was supposed to mean tossing out one's fear of failure, yet here she is ignoring Vesti's resolve to do the same. Instead, eunhwa's been trying to ensure they can win against an opponent like Behemoth without any casualties. Emma joins eunhwa on the swing set, remarking how this was the same place where eunhwa was scouted. As the squad's big sister figure, Emma knows eunhwa returns to this place whenever she's in a slump. Emma remarks how different things would be if Rapi had just expressed her feelings back then, rather than leaving without notice. If Rapi's silence was such a sin, then eunhwa's just as bad in this case for not talking things out properly with Vesti. While Absolute's leader is stuck chasing their past failures, Vesti's out here trying to advance. Her desire to have fun together is part of her resolve to improve and move forward from the past. If the youngest in their squad is trying so hard, the two of them need to reciprocate. Vesti plans for a whole day of shopping, and even a pajama party at the end. eunhwa hasn't worn a dress in ages, and Vesti wants to see it again. Thanks to Emma's intervention, eunhwa's actually willing to go along with the plan. Just as they're about to have fun, however, they get called away for yet another mission up north. Turns out, there's some new variant of rapture called predators that like to attack other raptures and grow stronger through cannibalism. These mechanical canines follow the lead of an alpha, allowing them to quickly adapt. They are, aside from heretics, the most intelligent raptures encountered thus far. It seems that, while searching for survivors, Tetra's Unlimited squad has requested backup. Specifically, they need to locate Delta and Signal of the Scouts, who have been attacked by predators in an unknown facility on the Glittering Mountains. With regard to Unlimited, we've already met Alice and Ludmilla, but there are still two members I haven't introduced yet. Let's cover them real quick. Tove is the squad's newest recruit, a well-studied survivalist who struggles putting her knowledge to use on the field. This includes her aversion to eating alternative foods like bugs. Much of her survival knowledge comes from watching old TV programs like Stranded and Guy vs. Wild. She originally debuted in the event A Lone Survivor. Wanting to put her skills to the test, Tove volunteered to explore the frozen northern tundra, only to bite off more than she could chew. As part of an Unlimited rescue mission, she and the commander got separated from the group by an avalanche. With the commander severely wounded, Tove had to step up and keep him safe, learning on the go. On the verge of death, she constructed some makeshift flares to alert her squad. They burned bright, but to keep those flames from dissipating, she allowed them to burn through her own hands. While it hurt, it was enough for them to be found by Unlimited. This reality check wound up being exactly what she needed to become a proper member of the team. Outside of search and rescue, Tove is a talented mechanic, which comes in clutch since Ludmilla tends to break any electronics she touches. In her Bond story, Tove struggles adapting to her team's way of doing things. Her by-the-books approach clashes with Unlimited's reliance on instinct. Luckily, she's able to find a middle ground, with each side learning to appreciate the other. Among Tove's kit of survival gear is a fire starter, which has saved her life on many occasions. When it breaks, she seeks help from Senti, even though Litter once had her banned from their workshop. Then, the commander helps Tove procure the materials needed to fix it, even going to the surface for a replacement rod. This particular fire starter has been used by various people who have all written their names down on it. As thanks for all the help, Tove writes both her name and his on it. Neve is perhaps the most underrepresented Nikke in the whole game, given away as a free unit. This resonates with her fascination with polar bears and subsequent habit of hibernating. She takes on rescue missions hoping to sight a polar bear in the wild, and earns her keep with a keen sense of smell that helps in tracking lost Nikkes. Rather unrealistically, she wants to meet, hug, and cuddle a real polar bear without it mauling her. In the meantime, she settles on the commander as her cuddle buddy, or burly bear, even though she can hold him tight enough to crush his bones. While Neve sleeps, the commander catches a bunch of fish, which they use to hopefully bait any potential polar bears. The commander gets lucky, or unlucky enough to encounter one, and it nearly kills him. Neve's attempt to rescue him scares the bear away, and while she gives up her search for the season, the commander comforts her by dressing up as a bear for their cuddle sessions. It's wholesome, I swear. Before getting attacked by predators, the scouts were able to find that bratty commander from before, alongside with Eagle as the only survivor of her squad. While trying to investigate the predators, they wound up trapped in the wolves' den. Again, I don't think there's a better time to explore who they are, since they rarely show up in the main story. As their squad name would imply, Delta is in charge of reconnaissance. She's the most straight-laced soldier you could ask for, but is completely hopeless when it comes to civilian matters. That's not to say she doesn't have familiar emotions, she just expresses them differently. Delta died in a terrorist bombing, and she tried to capture her killer after becoming a Nikke. However, her militaristic attire and presentation tipped off the culprit, letting them escape. Wanting to blend in with others in society, she consults the commander on how to act like a normal person, mainly so she can help out with undercover work. By all means, she has great defensive instincts, and is always prepared in the event of an attack. However, since most people in the arc don't brandish weapons, she has to learn to be more vulnerable. It takes a lot for her to stop treating everything as a potential emergency. Once the commander learns Delta wants to be normal as a means of catching her killer, he helps out in the search. Their investigation leads to a mastermind in the Outer Rim. It's all downhill after finding the killer's hideout, as Delta excels in infiltration. Rather than kill her murderer, Delta turned them into the ACPU. As thanks for the help, Delta wants to practice being normal around the commander, using things she gleaned from her partner's romance dramas. Practicing a technique she learned from a military romance, it's heavily implied that Delta gives the commander head, landing herself on the naughty list without realizing how incredible that is. Having exacted her revenge, Delta starts moonlighting as a ninja for the Thieves of Justice. In pursuit of stealth and espionage, she trains under the thieves, hoping to become a proper phantom thief herself. This comes with a newfound playfulness, as she ogles every inch of the commander's body while sharing a spot with him on the sofa. To a degree, I suppose we have Signal to thank for Delta's promiscuity, as she's the one obsessed with TV dramas. She dreams of being in a real relationship, all while sating herself with romantic fantasies. Not really helping her is her timid nature and lack of self-esteem. Despite being a communication specialist, she easily gets flustered and stutters when speaking. Thus, her closest personal connections are those she watches romance dramas with, like Emma. The commander gets involved when Signal wants to learn how to assert herself more. His assistance winds up making her fall for him. Connected to the signal of love, Signal relies on more romance stories to process her feelings. A bit on the nose, she and the commander watch a romantic drama between a fictional Nikke and her commander. Eventually, she confesses her feelings and fears being rejected. Instead, he too sends a signal back, and the two hug to commemorate their love. Now that we know who all these Nikkes are, let's continue. With the rest of Unlimited, Absolute starts searching the glittering mountains using the coordinates of Signal's last transmission. By themselves, the predators aren't especially strong. What makes them formidable is their optical camouflage, which they use to sneak up on their prey. The Alpha's quite a bit trickier, as it can effectively order the other predators into advanced formations. Thanks to this, they surround Absolute in the underground facility, and Vesti gets separated from the group after learning that predators can jam her missile guidance system. The ensuing explosion knocks them all unconscious, and the floor collapses under them. In the chaos, Emma recalls her first meeting with eunhwa. Even though Emma was scouted by Ingrid, she wasn't sure she'd join the team, but changed her mind after seeing eunhwa's resolve. Eunhwa strove to be the perfect warrior, one who would succeed where so many others fell. Too many people had already died, and she wanted to give meaning to their deaths. Wanting to see her succeed in this, Emma opted in. For as negative as eunhwa normally is, her cynicism never extended to her mission. Inspired by this, Emma became eunhwa's supporter, remaining compassionate even after Rapi left them. She's been aiding from the sidelines ever since, being an emotional rock eunhwa and Vesti could lean on. Now, however, she wonders if she should have played a more active role, if that would have changed their outcome. While unconscious, Emma is found by Signal, who in turn is hiding with the bratty commander and Eagle. Delta saved them all by luring away the predators and sealing away the tunnel behind her with a grenade. She's been missing ever since. Eunhwa's more concerned about Vesti, worrying that their littlest member has been killed. She blindly searches on her own, until Emma catches up and lectures her about tactics. Going alone like that held no strategic merit. Vesti, on the other hand, regains consciousness and finds Delta. Even as Delta tells her to run away, Vesti instead holds her ground, firing off enough missiles to attract her teammates. Seeing this, and taking the chance to talk about her concerns, eunhwa finally realizes how foolish she's been. They didn't lose to Behemoth because they're still alive, and it's their job to keep fighting no matter how many times they fall. They all made that commitment together, and it was unfair for eunhwa to try and handle the burden all on her own. Together, they enact a plan to get the survivors topside, where Signal can re-establish communications with Unlimited. Urging the evacuees to go on without them, Absolute stays behind to finish off the remaining predators. Even though Vesti's missiles can't hit their mark, they provide a smokescreen that offsets enemy camouflage. To help guide eunhwa's sniper rounds, Emma fires at targets within the smoke, with each of her signals being followed up by a killing blow. This strategy is effective until the Alpha shows up and the predators start adapting to the situation. They pull some crazy shit, like riding atop each other to hide their numbers, or blowing away the smoke with their fans. The Alpha itself is especially difficult to kill, as one of eunhwa's bullets lodges in its neck without properly detonating. In the end, Absolute resorts to some unconventional tactics the Alpha hasn't yet anticipated. This allows eunhwa to rush in and detonate her previous dud. Concentrating their fire helps force the Alpha onto a predictable path, making it possible for eunhwa to land one final shot in its head. The team celebrates with a collective fist bump, just as a rescue team arrives. The rest of the stragglers should be easy pickings. As for that mass-produced squad, Eagle and her commander can't believe it when Unlimited recovers the other Nikke's heads in brain shelters. Everyone's made it out alive. eunhwa hopes this experience will teach the bratty commander about tactics and bravery. Sure enough, he and his squad are inspired to do better, training in the simulator until they can defeat a blacksmith without casualties. Back at the Ark, Absolute goes over their data with Ingrid, who reveals something ominous. The predators were concentrated on that underground facility as their den. It seems similar facilities in the area have been discovered, along with evidence suggesting the predators were created by some mysterious third party that might not even be human. Going forward, Absolute is assigned to work with the scouts in investigating this case. Finally, after completing their mission, Vesti gets her wish of strolling around town with eunhwa in a dress. Their leader endures the embarrassment of Emma's teasing while browsing Caronade's toy store. At a cafe, the three of them finish a massive parfait and take photos before eunhwa changes back to her uniform, which I find hilarious given how revealing it is. They all wind up buying pajamas for the night's sleepover party. Under the evening sunset, the Ark's fake one anyway, the Nikkes of Absolute head home, walking forward both physically and metaphorically. These two events were a lot to digest, but stay tuned for Dai-chan's segment, as there's plenty to discuss.
Hey guys, it's time for analysis, spoilers, and some clarity on things I've mentioned before. Most of this will pertain directly to Rapi's backstory, but first, here are some corrections and clarifications. We'll be getting to the Unbreakable Sphere event soon, but in my video on Old Tales, I mentioned the Little Mermaid's bubble veil. I can now confirm, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that Siren created that bubble veil from within Gluttony, and not while she was falling from the space elevator. Inside that bastard, she's got the bubble tree, which is essentially a bubble factory down there, and we've seen it in action with her sentry bubbles that take the appearance of her squad mates. During the 70 years she was trapped in gluttony, she let enough bubbles escape to form the veil and protect mankind. This means that the queen had at least 30 years to communicate with her raptures and heretics before the veil cut them off. The veil's also made from the same bubbles that shield her from gluttony's core and digestive fluids. That said, I still have no fucking clue how Liberalia was able to deliver Lilith's head to the queen up in space, even though it happened before Siren's veil was made. Off-screen details regarding the veil are hidden within lost relics collected during the event. Thanks to everybody who pointed this out. In the previous video, I inquired about how Snow White could have possibly lost Seven Dwarfs Zero, but the answer was right under my nose. During the Ark Guardian story, she crashed the Wings of Victory, which contained her weapons factory. Grave likely found Seven Dwarfs Zero in the wreckage. At the time, Snow herself had more urgent matters to attend to, like staying alive. That mind switch also had her losing key memories, so she probably forgot she even made that weapon. As for Rapi and Red Hood, I think it's safe to say their fusion together may have been the result of Deep using their ancient technology. Again, the VTC was a tech company so influential that people began worshipping them like a religion. Their miracles were brought about from some untapped technology mankind had never seen before. By combining their technology with Nikke warfare, they secured their place among humanity's elite. Eventually, they merged with the United Forces of Humanity, becoming the central government, though their respective factions still vied for power. Thus, when the chance presented itself, Andersen wiped most of them out on the government's behalf. Now, most all of the VTC's legacy has been appropriated by Missillis in the MMR. One remaining legacy of the VTC is Deep, a series of Nikkes built to work non-stop on research and development. They considered their work invaluable, calling themselves the Ark's Guardians. Because the members of Deep were integral to the Ark's main functions, they were kept alive during the VTC Purge. In a desperate attempt to regain power, they orchestrated the assassination of Pretty. I'm still not sure how involved Pretty was in her own demise, but she at least anticipated someone coming to kill her, and those assassins were traced back to Deep. As punishment, the Nikkes of Deep were crippled, losing everything below the spine. Now they're just husks crawling in the dark. The member of Deep guarding the lift's ultra-massive core seems to be an exception, as she's needed to maintain that hidden laboratory. The term being tossed around is ancient technology, but we still don't know what exactly the VTC was drawing upon in their technological development. Whatever it winds up being, it likely played a role in Rapi's ability to transform like she does. When the Absolute event first dropped, the revelation of predators seemed like a huge deal. However, they haven't returned since, and their existence still hasn't been properly explained. Ingrid supposes a third party created them, and that said party may not even be human. The only suspects I can think of would be Mirror, or possibly the Four Beasts, who experiment with raptures in an effort to make their queen. So far, though, this all remains an unconfirmed mystery, making me wonder why we were baited with such ominous implications in the first place. Another thing worth mentioning is the concept of OVER-SPEC Nikkes. As a blanket statement, these are all the newly upgraded forms being released in the gacha. So far, the members of Counters, Matisse, Absolute, Snow White, and even Mihara have gotten upgrades that qualify. The general idea is that OVER-SPEC Nikkes are created using cutting-edge technology, making them stronger than the average Nikke. How they become stronger can depend on circumstance. Some are upgraded through Rapture tech, while others experience a major transformation like Rapi. Who do you most want to get the OVER-SPEC treatment next? Personally, I find it hit or miss. If it's like Eunhwa, who looks phenomenally better than before, I'm all in. For Nikkes like Maxwell, however, I prefer her old design. Well, that does it for today. If you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a channel member. It's by far the best way to support us. Check the official playlist for all of these Nikke videos. And until next time, celebrate your fandom!
I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Time Travel Master, Stephen Elak, Mystic Samurai 1983, Otaku Mom, Free Brick, Jugemu Jugemu Unko, Lunarworks, Link Pendrago, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Major, Matal Mataru, Winter's Edge, Fanathiel, Foxbox, Alzinga Fagan, Draco Chaotic, Caitlin P, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X77, Alistair Bernadotte, and Liamon 3. Thank you all so much.